What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comically Boston. Today is episode 60, and it is May 8th, 2023. We got some sports to talk about, but then we're going to dive into the Guardians of the Galaxy. At first, I'll give a spoiler-free review and reaction, and then I'm going to dive into some spoilers talking about that. But first, let's talk about my Celtics and their progress in the NBA playoff. The other night, they took Game 3 and went up 2-1 in the series. That game was 114-102. JB carried us. JB had 23. JT finally coming back into his own. He's been getting doubled, and he's been having a tough series so far. But JT had 27 and 10. Duos in the league. JB averaging 26 in the playoffs. JT averaging 26.1. Joker averaging 27.7. Murray averaging 25.7. Book averaging 35.4 and KD averaging 27.9 for duos in the playoffs right now. That's pretty wild, but I don't know. I like the Jays bet the most here, so we'll see. But Jokic had a crazy night the other night. We'll talk about that in a second. James Harden in Game 1 had 45. Games 2 and 3 combined, he had 28. In Games 2 and 3, I'm pretty sure Jaylen Brown took the defensive assignment over Marcus Smart, which is, him and Marcus had to have a little chat, and I think JB's been doing a pretty good job. Grant Williams took a shot in this game, though. You can see even by JB's face here. This shot is so funny. I had to save this picture. I'm sorry to Grant, because he's literally just getting stepped on by Embiid, and Grant's face is fully in the ground. But right next to him, you can see JB's like, I'm the one wearing the mask. Oh! Like, he's like, oh, Grant! Oh! Like, JB witnessed this whole thing happen right up close. This is shocking. This is no bueno. But I thought that was hilarious. But let's talk about Game 4. They lost in an overtime game. The series is now 2-2. We lost 116-115. This one was so close. It was tied in the fourth quarter, and Marcus Smart had a three-pointer, pretty good look for game, and just front-rimmed it short, so we headed into overtime. He gets a good look at the buzzer and makes it in overtime, but it was late and he didn't get it off on time, and the 76ers get the game. But Marcus Smart misses the first one, comes back in OT and shoots another one, and makes it, but it was too late. And like, I always get mad when Marcus Smart shoots because he's our defensive player. He's not the guy that I want taking the shot when the game's on the line. But if he's wide open, I do want him taking that shot, because that's when you should shoot, when you're wide the fuck open, especially in the NBA. But sometimes Marcus just misses shots that he should make, and sometimes he makes shots that he should miss. And that's just who Marcus Smart is. I have no idea why he does shit like this, but he does. And he likes to give us hard attacks. But like I said, series tied 2-2. We're heading back to Boston for Game 5. That will be Tuesday night. But in Game 4, Harden had 42, 8, and 9. Embiid had 34, 13 rebounds, 4 assists. Wow. Those two. James Harden's been reminding people that he's still James Harden. And Joel Embiid's just fucking, 7'2", 280. Like, he's just a massive human being. Like, he's just a very good basketball player, too. He's got such good footwork for being so big, too. Which is scary in terms. Last night, the Nuggets and the Suns faced each other as well. And the Joker had 53 in a loss. 53 and 11 assists in a playoff game and lost. And the Suns win that game. And KD and Book both had 36. So, whew. But the Suns-Nuggets is just 2-2 game. The Warriors and Lakers Game 2, I believe, Game 4 is tonight. The Lakers are up 2-1 over the Warriors. That's a good series so far. Just to watch, just because, like, LeBron versus Steph in the playoffs, like, 7-game series. That's just going to be a good series to watch. Stay tuned for that. Like I said before, the Celtics and the 76ers are now 2-2, Game 5, heading back to Boston. And the Miami Heat are 2-1 over the Knicks. They're heading into their Game 4 probably tonight, as well as the Lakers-Warriors. So stay tuned for that, y'all. Comment below, who do you like in the playoffs? Out of those, 8 teams left, who do you think will go on to the next round to face each other? Comment below. Some brief news while we get into the mood of talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. James Gunn, obviously the new head of DC Films, and the director and writer of the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He is writing Superman Legacy, and he confirmed the other day that Kyrpto the Superdog will be in Superman Legacy. And I mean, this was news that I saw going around Twitter, but are we serious? Like, do we not think that James Gunn was going to put in dogs in this? I mean, I'm just saying. Like, this is the same guy that gave us Rocket, the animated CGI raccoon, and now he's my favorite character in the MCU. Like, like, come on. We knew there was going to be a super dog in this. He had Cosmo in Guardians of the Galaxy. He already has progress with dogs doing telekinesis and shit. All he needs to do now is make it shoot laser eyes. I'm pretty sure he's got that down pat. Like, I'm pretty sure Kyrpto is going to be people's favorite character in that movie over Superman. Like, but if James Gunn's going to do anything right for that, he's going to give it humor and he's going to give it heart. And he does the perfect guy to do both of those things. He does the perfect amount of humor and the perfect amount of heart in his scripts, and it's like you can feel it, like that he's got such a connection to his characters. I would really like to see a Guardians 4 after Guardians 3, but we'll talk about that right now. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3, if you haven't seen, this is my spoiler-free review. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 stars. I think it's a very, very good film. If you're a fan of movies 1 and 2, and you're a fan of the MCU in general, and you've seen Infinity War, Endgame, the holiday special, all that shit, Thor, Love and Thunder, this isn't Thor, Love and Thunder, and this isn't Quantumania. This movie for the MCU brings shit back to what it should be. You know, there's no Kang, there's a different villain, but even the villain doesn't have world-ending stakes. He's just a bad guy doing bad things. Chug Woody Awuji as the High Evolutionary is unbelievable. He just is so evil, and he made me hate him so much that, like, oh, we'll get into the spoilers in a second. But go check out this movie if you haven't. I give it my 9 out of 10. I think I'd give it a 10 out of 10, but I have like little nitpicky things that I would have changed or would have liked to see or explained maybe, but we'll get into that. So now I'm going to get into spoilers. If you haven't seen this movie, go watch the movie, come back, comment what you think, listen to what I have to say about it. But I really want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So in my links in the description below, I have my Instagram at Comically Boston and my Twitter at BigCamYouTube. DM me or at me on Twitter. What are your thoughts of this movie and on the MCU in general right now, and how excited are you for their next project, Secret Invasion? I would like to hear from you guys, so comment below or at me on my social medias, like I said. But now, full spoilers for the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Whew, and this movie really hit me in the feels, because I cried at that movie too. But I'll tell you exactly the part where I cried. I cried at one part in movie 2 and one part in movie 1. And in movie 1, it was when Groot says, "We are Groot," and he surrounds everybody with his like little barge. And that's when, you know, Groot #1, adult Groot, cashes himself and he's out. So just real quick, we're going to get into this right now. Which Groot is my favorite? I think this new Groot, Swole Groot is my favorite, but the OG Groot looked amazing. You know, the tall, skinny, long-armed, "I am Groot." You know, like when we didn't know what he was saying and he was just a tree, but James Gunn made us fall in love with him anyways. And We Are Groots us into some tears, and then he comes back as Baby Groot, right? Baby Groot is as cute as it could possibly be. You know, like he couldn't be any cuter, this Baby Groot. But then he grows up to be Teenage Groot. And Teenage Groot has some attitude problems. And Teenage Groot looks a lot more like OG Groot, but, he's, growing up around video games and Star-Lord and music and celestial energy and stuff like that. So I think he's going to be a little bit different. So he goes from the Teenage Groot to Swole Groot, and we see this in the holiday special, and then now in this movie, and then it changes again in the post-credit scene to Alpha Groot, and he's huge Groot, like way bigger than OG Groot, like huge Groot, like he's posing as a boulder when we see him in a post-credit scene. So like, what? Oh man, like, Oh, and I actually missed a Groot. Down in the bottom right corner, you can see the Groot that's dancing from the first movie. I want you back, ooh 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 yeah, I want you back. And then Drax looks at him, and he just freezes. Like, oh man, I loved all three of these Guardians movies so much. 1 and 2 I loved for years, but it's been so long since Guardians 2. But Guardians 2, where Kraglin does the yeah, because the Ravagers show up for Yondu's Ravager funeral. Oh, my heart every time, like tears. And fucking and Peter Quill, it's not time to make a change. Just relax and take it easy. Ooh, Cat Stevens, Father and Son, like that's one of my all-time favorite songs. And then that in the movie, and then in this movie, Yondu comes back for Kraglin. Kraglin has to, use his arrow, and he's trying to figure it out. He's been trying to figure out for a couple movies now, and he tries to figure it out in the holiday special, but he finally is, there's chaos going on. There's a whole bunch of people coming into nowhere, and he's got to defend it. And he's holding this arrow, and he's praying, and he's like, "Come on, come on!" And he sees the ghost or a memory of Yondu, and he's going, and it's Michael Rooker, and he's back in Guardians 3. He's been in all of them because he's James Gunn's buddy. Of course, he's gonna be on all of them. So Michael Rooker's like, "You gotta use your heart, boy. Use my heart." The same thing that he said to Peter in the last movie when talking about the arrow. Got to use your heart to fly the arrow, and Kraglin uses his heart, and it works, and he kills a whole bunch of people with the whistle. Like just such a badass character design. You know what I mean? Like you have an arrow and a fin on your head, and it lights up, and so does the arrow when you whistle, and it can kill people. Like, whoo! Whoever was doing acid when they found out that did a great job. If you don't believe my reaction to this movie, CinemaScore gave this movie an A, so that's definitely a plus. And on Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave this movie 80%. 80% critic rating is pretty freaking good. And that's on 220 reviews. And audience score at 97%. That's, more like it. 97% audience score, that's pretty freaking good. For a 2.5-hour Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Whew. But this movie just hits you in so many feels. This part here where they're in the cage with Rocket, Lila, Floor, and Teefs. Oh my god, dude. This movie hit me so hard in all the feels. Because, after the Guardians 1, 2, Infinity War, Endgame, and you realize that in the holiday special, you realize how Rocket was blipped, and he was around on Earth with Nebula, was his only family left, was him and Nebula. Oh. And then Nebula's arc in this movie, she ends up becoming like the leader of the Guardians, but she's not the leader of the Guardians, she's the now mom and the family keeper with Drax on Nowhere. So the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy is now Rocket, and they're all in that circle, and they all salute Rocket. That had me going. And then Groot speaks for the first time, and we actually hear what he says, which James Gunn has confirmed on the internet. It wasn't us hearing Groot speak. It was us hearing Groot and understanding it as an audience because we've spent enough time with Groot, which I really love. I hope going forward we don't just hear Groot's. I hope that Marvel doesn't take that from James Gunn and just be like, oh well, we can now just understand Groot. No. People that have been around Groot can understand Groot. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even us in a different movie, I think we still want to hear I am Groot. Like, it just, even after all this time of us being like, well, all he says is Groot. Now we're like, he said I love you guys, but I kind of still want him to say I am Groot. Like, just funny dilemma. But I think Groot, even Alpha Groot, by the end of this movie, but Groot in this movie is so badass. He's like a true fighter, a true member of this team, and he's really carrying his weight. Peter gives him the guns. That whole shit with Peter driving the car because he left Earth when he was 8, so he has no idea. Nebula drops the first F-bomb in the MCU. He's like, push the button. She puts his finger on the keyhole. He's like, you put the finger on the keyhole. He's like, there's a button underneath the door. Push that in. She's like, okay, now what? Open the fucking door. Okay. It's just too funny, but all the funny scenes in this movie are like intercut with sad like flashbacks or sad scenes like of Rocket when he's young, and like some of these scenes have you going from laughing like with James Gunn's funny characters, then a flashback to Rocket and the High Evolutionary being evil, and Rocket getting tortured or something, and you just see some tough images. Like some of this movie is hard to watch. Like if you're an animal lover, like after getting Bodhi, my dog, for the last couple years since COVID, I've now become, you know, like a full-blown animal lover. I always loved animals, but I never was an owner of an animal. So now I'm like, I really understand at least my dog. You know, if I don't understand all animals, I understand Bodhi. And he's my son, and he's my boy, and I fucking love that kid. And if he could talk like fucking Rocket, me and that dog would have some conversations, let me tell you. That dog has some personality, so he'd say a lot. but regardless, you go from seeing some hard shit, like Rocket getting surgery done on him, and Rocket and Teefs and them having a tough go at it, and the High Evolutionary like yelling at him and throwing him and calling him 89P13 instead of Rocket, like doesn't give him a name, just demonizes him as this like thing, and just like gives him hope and then takes it away, like, and then Rocket clauses, right? So it's even hard to watch when Rocket like it breaks out, right, because he finally has that key card that he still has when he's old. Oh. And that opening shot where Rocket's young and he's scared in the cage, and you see the time lapse and the Rocket gets old. The CGI in this movie looked flawless. Like, anybody that's bitching about CGI for this one, ridiculous. If you're going to bitch about anything, maybe people didn't like what happened to Adam Warlock, because he's very different from his comic books, which I don't really mind because I never really read a lot of comic books for Adam Warlock. But, you know, he's got to be able to come into it somehow. You know, I feel like we thought he was going to be in this movie a lot more. I would have really liked to see the actual scene of him getting pulled out of the cocoon early instead of them just dropping it as a line. He got pulled out of the cocoon early. He's like a little baby. And like that worked. It worked for me, and I understood what happened. You could put context clues put together. Okay, he got pulled out of the cocoon since that post-credit scene, blah, blah, blah. Right. I just wish, you know, James Gunn said before this movie came out that it was cut down and trimmed all the fat off this movie. I think that's 100% factual. I just think we could have gotten a few little scenes more with Adam Warlock, and it would have given his character a little bit more weight, and a little bit more in the screen time. It felt like he was maybe a little underused, and he was just like a dumb baby the whole time. But there was a couple scenes that had me really dying with him, where he like he's with his mom, and his mom goes, "Show him we mean business." So he just like, I don't know what that means, so I'm just gonna shoot him in the chest with a beam. He just kills the guy, and he's like proud of himself. He's like, no. She's like, "That is not what I meant by we mean business." And he's like, "Well, how else would I show him business? I don't know. I'm fucking a kid, you know." But the High Evolutionary, Chugwoody Awuji, is so evil, and you can see this mask he's got on. And this is just a mask, like, you wonder why he's like this. I love James Gunn because he tells us why he's like this. Because in flashbacks, he's got hair, and he's not looking like this. And Rocket, before he escapes, right, he escapes with Lila, gives her a hug, and we see this part where he's giving her a hug in the trailers, but we don't see what happens right after. So I think from the trailers that he's going to hug her, he's going to take Floor and Teefs out of the cages, and they're all going to escape. But then you think about it, and you go, wait a second. Guardians is after this. So if this is when Rocket's young, and we see Rocket when he's old, and Lila, Teefs, and Floor aren't around, what happened to them? And James Gunn fills in those fucking clues real fucking quick. So he hugs her, you're like, oh, they're about to escape. And the fucking High Evolutionary shoots her in the back. And Lila dies in front of us all. And you just see this heartbreaking moment where Rocket just is standing there, and he doesn't even know what to do. His only friend, one of his best friends and only friends in the galaxy, just died in front of him, and he just, you know, like real kid tears, you know what I mean? Like, where you're just, you know, you're just screaming, you know? You don't even know why you're screaming, because you can't get the tears out. You're just fucking sad, and you know it. Like, you're like, you're just sad. And I'm in the theater, come on. And then Rocket gets angry and goes after him and fucking, right? So now I'm crying for Lila, but now I'm cheering, right? So I'm, yeah, you know, so I'm in between ugly tears and cheering, and I'm trying to laugh, but I'm also trying to fucking, you know, be there in the moment. So I'm like, oh God, fuck, I'm soaking wet, and fucking Rocket claws his face out, and it's gruesome. You see blood in his mouth, and like you just, but he's so evil and such a dick, and he's making fun of him when he's crying. He's so mean that you're like cheering for Rocket to fuck him up. Like, you just fuck him up, Rocket. Like, do it. And then 2 guards run in and shoot 2 more times. Just miss Rocket. We see Rocket shoot back. This is where Rocket starts to become, you know, Rocket. He's bam, yeah, fuck you, man. You know, like he's Rocket. You know, the Rocket we know and love, the gun slanging pilot. He's that Rocket. And he turns around, and Floor and Teefs get shot. So now all 3 of his friends are dead. The High Evolutionary's face is cut up. He's not dead, because now he gets the mask. And the whole time, Peter Quill's like, this isn't a trap, it's a face-off. And if you watch the movie Face-Off, what happens in that movie? His face gets peeled off, and his face comes off. That's what happens in that movie. So, like, I was like, oh my God, he even ties that in somehow. I'm like, James Gunn, you're so fucking good, dude. You're so good. I fucking love this man. And if it gives me anything, it gives me absolute clarity and hope that Superman Legacy will not be a bad movie. It will be everything we need it to be. It will have heart and humanity and love and animals and CGI, but it will also be visually beautiful, and it will be a story that we care about. We'll care about the characters. We won't just be watching what happens. We'll care about what happens. You know what I mean? Like, that's why James Gunn is a beautiful director. A lot of these directors out here making movies. James Gunn's making lifetime memories. You know, he's making friends, and that's why everyone like gives him a hard time for putting Jennifer Holland in this movie. I love that. I love that James Gunn is so loyal and such a man of his people that he's like, fuck, I need a character for this scene. Hey, honey, you want to be in this real quick? I need somebody. Okay, yeah. And she's like, honey, you sure you don't want to hire somebody else? He's like, I could, or I could pay you, and you're here. You know, like, he just uses his brain in ways that he doesn't think about doing the extra steps. He's like, well, I could just give Roker a call. Roker would probably do it. Okay. Nathan Fillion's probably around. Yeah, I'll just give him, like, he just calls the people that he likes. Even Lila is Linda Cardellini, which James Gunn did the Scooby-Doo movies, and she played Velma in those Scooby-Doo movies way back when, and she made Velma look grade A smoke show. So, I mean, Linda, and she also plays, Barton Hawkeye's wife in the MCU. So, she's around. She's been around. She's not like a brand new person to the MCU, but I love that James Gunn let her be another character. And he knows that character dies. So it's not that big a deal to get, Lady Gaga like people wanted to play Lila. Because we all thought Lila wasn't going to die. But she does. And Rocket ends up being now the leader of the group, and he's got his Rocket, and he's got Will Poulter, and Kraglin's still around. So I really thought everyone was going to die in this movie. The only people that do die in this movie are the people of Counter-Earth. They're dead, for sure. Not because of the Guardians, because the High Evolutionary blows up the planet. Which makes you feel like he's done this more than once, which is terrifying, because he's an evil man. We see High Priestess, Will Poulter's, Adam Warlock's mom. What is her name? Aisha. Aisha dies. We see that happen. And then potentially the High Evolutionary dies with his face off laying on the ground. But he could always put that face peel back on, and it would still be that terrible thing underneath, right? So if he puts that face peel back on, and he somehow made it out of that blowing up ship, I think the High Evolutionary's alive, because Rocket left him alive, because he's a frickin' Guardian of the Galaxy, okay? You know, and I respect that too, you know? He was like, you know what, this guy is so evil, I hope he just dies on this rock, but you guys know, in the MCU, if we don't see a body, they're dead. Yeah, or if we don't see a body, they're not dead. They're fucking, they're just evil, and they're out, and they're in the wind, and they're doing bad things. We need to stop them. So I don't know. I really do think there should be a Guardians 4. With the way that it was left, Peter Quill goes back to his grandfather, Mantis gets her own thing, Gamora goes to Ravengers. I think it was a beautiful send-off for those people. If Drax is now a father dancing with those kids, if Nebula's on Nowhere, if, you know, Peter's on Earth with his father, if Gamora's with the Ravengers, I think that's great. You know, Gamora doesn't need to come back, Drax and Nebula, they don't need to come back, but their character's still alive, so I would love to see them. They don't necessarily need to have huge roles fighting the galaxy. That can be the new group, but I do want to see these characters again. I just liked them too much, and at the end it threw me off because it says Peter Quill, or it doesn't say Peter Quill, but it says the legendary Star-Lord will return. Not the Guardians of the Galaxy will return, the legendary Star-Lord. So, is that, 1, Peter Quill will come back, or is it 2, a theory that I have, we didn't see this mask in movie 3, and this is my theory that I'll end this on. We didn't see Star-Lord's mask in movie 3. Why? Is it because it was broken in movie 2 or in Infinity War Endgame, like it should have been? Maybe. Or, this is my theory, it might be a little bit of a reach, but comment below if you think I'm reaching. Is the legendary Star-Lord somebody that has found Peter's mask and is trying to pass themselves off as Star-Lord in the galaxy, and that will be the next movie? Or will it be somebody that Peter passed on the legendary Star-Lord moniker to, like passing on the helmet? Maybe, I don't know. You comment below. I need to see this movie again, and we'll be talking more about it. I really want to know what you guys think. For a first-time viewing, I really, really love this movie, and I cannot wait to see it again. I've been hesitant to go see it again, though, because I cried a lot. Like, I cried a lot. I was sitting next to Langone, and I kept looking at him like, I'm a fucking mess. I'm soaking wet. I'm sitting there with my shirt like, oh, God. And the whole time I was like, I was a mess. Like, and I think it's because I really love these movies and have a special place in my heart for all these characters. And I've grown up with them. You know what I mean? The first time I saw Guardians, I was in my buddy Barnard's house. It was the Super Bowl that the New England Patriots faced the Seahawks, and Malcolm Butler caught the ball on the 2-yard line, and that was the game because he picked it off from them, and they threw it instead of running it in with Marshawn Lynch. They should have just punched him with Marshawn Lynch. But we took the dub, and then me and my buddy Langone go to leave his house, and we look outside, and there was like 4 feet of snow on the ground. So we got snowed in. We end up staying at my buddy's Barnard's house for a sleepover. He goes, you never seen this movie? He puts in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And I had missed it in theater somehow, never saw the trailers. I go, what is this? And it was hilarious, and it was beautiful, and it was like late at night, so they fall asleep. I stayed up and watched the whole Guardians of the Galaxy movie in my buddy's living room, and like just sat on the edge of my seat like laughing, and I was like, this music hits so hard. I'm like, why is this so good? I'm like, but why is it like perfect? Like, it's everything about that movie. And the first one, the second one, the third one, James Gunn puts his touches on it, and I love the man as a director, a writer, and a filmmaker, and he's very inspirational. And I honestly, like, if there's one thing in the world that I want to do, it's I want to do what James Gunn does. You know, I want to make films. Like every time I see one of his movies, it makes me feel like I gotta do this. Like, I want to act, I want to direct, I want to be a cameraman. I don't care. I want to be involved with movies, you know. And if it's this is as much as I get to do is react and tell people what I thought of those movies. Hey, I hope one of you guys thinks that my reaction was good enough for you to go watch it. You know, like, you know, or if you like the movie and I like the movie, maybe we can love the movie together and we can talk about it. Like, it's just one of those things. It brings people together, but it brings things out of you that you didn't know you had in you. Your emotions, tears. I'm not a crier. Like, I've gone to plenty of funerals and stood there like a stonemason, you know, fucking brick, just standing there ready to go, like just being a man. But a true man, as James Gunn has said, knows to embrace his emotions, because that's what true men do. True men aren't this Clint Eastwood type from 1960. It's 2023. It's a new day and age. If you can't cry, what kind of man are you? And I'll leave you guys with a quote from Jimmy V that I absolutely love. Jimmy V is the guy that was a coach for basketball teams a long time ago, and he died of cancer, and he's the Jimmy V Fund here in Boston, and he's named after him. But Jimmy V gave a speech at the ESPYs years ago, and he said, Jimmy V said, and I wanted to make sure I got this right. Jimmy V said, if you can laugh, think, and have an emotion move you to tears, that's a heck of a day. And don't let anyone tell you different. If you can laugh, have emotions in your body come out in laughter, if you can think about something and you can have an emotion move you to tears, that is a heck of a day. I will live by that for the rest of my life. Shout out to you, Jimmy V. That was said 30 years ago at the 1993 SP speech. I fucking love that man, and I remember that speech every time I ever hear an SP speech or an award speech. I always remember about Jimmy V. And I hope you guys have a heck of a day. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Go watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Comment below what you think of it. Smash that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Smash that bell so you don't miss any future videos. And I'll see you guys when I see you guys. Be safe, be well. I love you all.